to Lightbulb Grip and Electric. We're a rental house in Brooklyn. We mostly deal with film lighting, and so every month we try to offer one event, whether it's, some months it's going to be a free mixer, and some months it's going to be an educational class. We've done a variety of classes in the past. We just had fun and got a bunch of these new Astera units in, and we thought, man, this would be a great thing to talk about. This is a great skill to have for young filmmakers, so why not? Let's do it. So, in order to kick this thing off, hi, I'm Adam. Okay, we did this before. In order to kick this off, I want to introduce Greg Hodges in the back. Greg, wave your hand. Okay, so Greg's here from Astera LEDs. He's the rep that I work with from them, and so he brought a lot of hardware to play with for us. There are a whole bunch of demo units and setups that we're going to get to play with in a little while, and he's also the one that that I go to with questions when I can't figure out the answer. I call Greg, so we love Greg. All right. The other person I want to mention today, Ben Ng is here. He's in the back. Ben, come on, put your hand up. Let's do this. Hey. Okay, so Ben's here from the Available app. Why do I mention the Available app? Because they're sponsoring us today. So the Available app is an amazing application. You can get it for iOS and you can get it for Android. It's great for you to be able to show everybody else when you're available for work, and if you're hiring, it's a great way for you to look out in the crowd and quickly see 2 Thursdays from now who's available. You can click and book them right online. It's a completely free app made for filmmakers. It's a great thing to play with. If you haven't downloaded it yet today, definitely give it a try, and Ben's in the back if you have any questions. All right, everybody still with me? Yeah? Cool. All right. So this is what we're going to cover today. This is the whole range of stuff. All right. So we have a quick introduction. I'm going to go through some of the basics, and then we're going to go through piece by piece how these work, and then what we can do with them. Okay? This I know is a little scary, so let's just jump right into it. Okay. For a quick introduction, so for those of you guys who haven't played with this yet, Asteras are going to come in a case. These are the tubes. They're about 3.8 feet long?
1 meter.
1 meter, yeah. Okay. 1 meter long. They have 22 points of color. You can define, or 22 sets of LEDs that you can change the colors on, and there's a battery built into the unit. So these last anywhere from 2 to 20 hours, depending on how bright you set them. So you can get a lot of runtime out of them. So if we just need them for a couple scenes, we need them full power, you get a couple hours out of them, but if you're willing to let them be a little bit dimmer, maybe they're background lights, they'll run all day. So we can do some interesting things with them that we can't do with almost any other light out there in film, or any of the ones that we have access to in an indie world. I think the most interesting things, interesting implementations we've seen with them so far is going to be poor man's process, when you need lights moving past a window quickly. How many of you guys have ever gotten stuck doing this with a lamp? Over and over and over. Yeah, that kills gaffers' backs. But if you could have a couple of those, you set it up next to the windows and it does it itself, and you just stand there with the app, it's a lot easier. It's a lot more fun. You want some moonlight going by, you want some colors, they can do things like that. We also use them a lot for events and for lighting like architectural spaces, clubs. They get used a lot for. I've set up plenty of them. We put them in, line them out in the background or hang them in a club, and then you can change the colors as cameras moving through a room on a Steadicam. The world is changing with you. So you can do a lot of fascinating things with them. I enjoy working with, there are a couple other kinds of tube-style lamps, but I find that Astera is a great mix of both having battery power, being able to put them anywhere, being able to pop them off and run around with them. Because there's no wires, you can literally just pop these things off, and you now have a moving portable light. So in a few seconds, as camera's changing up, what you're going to do, thank you, Sam, appreciate it. As the DP and director are changing what they want to do, you can work much more quickly on the fly with those. Okay. There's also flow effects and grouping are two interesting things. So grouping is pretty simple. On the app, you can set different sections of a room or different groups of lamps to do different things at the same time. They can both do 2 different programs moving at once. Flow effects are really fascinating, where you get an opportunity. I'm going to play with these for a second. If you watch the light, it moves through tube 1, through tube 2, you can get them to flow through each other. So now if you imagine these are all in one long line, you can create much larger processes out of things. Whether it's a rainbow moving through or you're doing the poor man's process we mentioned before. So let's put those back to rainbow. And so now we have one long rainbow that's moving between all 4 lamps. Or we can change it to, you know, I can change this so you can see what I'm doing. 1 second. Okay. So here I either have flow or sync. So when we're on sync, we're going to go through this much more in detail in a second. Now they'll all move together. You guys with me? Yeah? Okay. Sometimes I can't tell the difference between people staring into space and people like intently interested. So crowd reactions are great. All right. Let's jump back to the PowerPoint for a second. So difference from competitors. So they're not the brightest thing on the market, but I find them to be the most flexible thing on the market for use in a variety of situations. Technically, quasars are a little bit brighter and maybe a little bit better for like key lights or direct lights on people, but these are great for architectural, for spaces, and for doing colors in interesting ways quickly. Okay, so the basic tools we're working with in this setup. We have the lamps, and yeah, they're all battery powered. We were talking about this a second ago. On the end of each of the tubes, there's a 1/4-20 screw hole. And so each of the kits comes with eye-rings, so that you can screw them in and be able to hang them quickly. It comes with little clasps so you can bite the lamp with a baby pin to put in a C-stand. So those 2 things give you a lot of flexibility and ways to work. You can also screw in anything that fits into a 1/4-20 screw hole in there. The one thing we don't want to do, though, is try to screw them into each other, because otherwise you end up with a weak point and it breaks the lamp. It's more likely to break. So we're not building any double-ended lightsabers, okay? Promise me we're not going to do that, guys? Yeah? Okay. All right, cool. Other parts that we need for the kit, and the ART7 box. So this is a little wireless DMX unit, and what this is doing is this is the talking piece between the tablet that we're working with that has the application on it and the units. So this is a translator, and so these 2 are talking in Bluetooth, and then these 2 are talking in wireless DMX. That make sense? Okay. So this is a regular standard Samsung tablet. You can get a variety of these. This app, the Astera app, also runs on iOS as well. Free app to download. Once you get the lamps, the app's free. And then, yeah, so this is the piece that helps the 2 of them connect. Now also, if you wanted to connect through to a lighting board, or if you want to do like traditional theater style lighting, this will also help you connect to that world as well. There is a smaller version of this if you don't want to spend the energy to get the whole tablet, or you want to work a little bit more slimmed down. I didn't grab this beforehand. There is a infrared remote. And so this is a little remote with a whole bunch of quick hotkeys on it. And so you can just point it at it and, Greg, am I going to screw this up if I change these? No? No? Okay. Maybe? No? Okay. So they're all paired to the tablet. But, so this is a quick way, especially for the, oh dear. What did you do? We're going to go back to that for a second. Okay. There we go. I don't know how that happened. Okay. So these are a quick way to work, especially if you are working with a tablet and let's say for some reason battery dies on set or you lose the connection or something and you need to make stuff work quickly. There are a lot of quick hotkeys on here. There's regular daylight and tungsten buttons and a variety of colors and intensities. So this is a quick little cheat. But the priority for today is going to teach us how to program these with the tablet and to make as many things work with the tablet as we can. All right, so let's take a look through the app setup. Okay, so the app itself, switch back. So when we first launch the app, the first thing we're going to see is the connection screen. This is where we take a look. I'm going to click on the top on List Connected Lights, and we can see the four tubes, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the box. All right. So connection is where we start to see what we're working with, where our battery percentages are, and then there's a light bulb on the edge that you can click, and it will show you which lamp it is. Okay? So if you're looking around a room and you've got 30 or 40 or 50 of these things set up, and you're trying to figure out which lamp is stuck on green for some reason, and you need to fix them, you can look through them quickly and sort out which ones are which. Or if you're working with a DP and he's like, oh, I just want that one. And it's like, well, which one? Do you want that one or do you want this one? Oh, that one. Okay, great. So that's these light bulb icons. So as we go through these main header tabs, we're going to see the settings get more and more specific. So the first tab that we're looking at is just the overall setup, is this system working? Then the second tab we're looking at is going to be choosing which lamps we're looking at. All right? A lot of buttons, but very quickly, all lights, there's an option for groups. We're going to get into talking about how you can group lights together to do different things. Sync and flow are two options that I've set up, and then there's separate setups for each of the 4 lamps that are up here. Right? So to add, let's say we want to add a new program. Up at the top, there's this little plus button. The pencil icon is going to help you be able to move the icons that you already have, whether you're removing programs or adding programs. But the plus button is where we're going to make a new program. All right, so you can either choose it by the specific type of light that you have, or you can choose a sync set or a flow set. Most of the time when we're working in film, we're probably working with sync sets, because you want a group of lamps, all 4 of those lamps, to all do the same thing at the same time. When you're ganging them up like they're a Kino unit, or you're trying to create a common source behind a piece of diffusion, most likely we're working with a sync set, where when you give it a control, all of the lamps do the same thing at the same time. Every once in a while we'll set up a flow set. So we set up a sync set. In order to do that, we're going to go through. So it's asking us to add lights, press their on-off button. So on the end of the tube, there is one button where we're going to press it once, and you'll see it start. Give it a second. It pops up. Oh, tube 1 is part of this. All right. Now tube 2, tube 3, tube 4. I think it's running a little bit slowly because we have so many different units in the room at once, but usually it responds a little bit quicker. So once we've selected all the lights that we want to be put in the group together, up here there's a little plus, a little check mark. That's the way we say yes. Okay, so a flow set was created. Do we want to try a test pattern? Yes. Great, so they're all grouped together now. All right, I'm going to quickly move over here and change that back to something a little bit quieter. Okay, so we got a rainbow that's just going to slowly move through. So that brings us to panel 2. So now that we've selected what lights we want to play with, we're going to move into the boxes panel, is where we pick the color program, the color profile that we want to work with. So there are a whole bunch of different pre-programmed setups that come through. And when I say there are a lot in here. Oh dear, what did you do? Okay, just stay still. Okay, cool. All right. Some of these are set up, you'll see, in 4/4 time, 2/4 time, strobe, flash. A lot of these are kind of party setups or event setups. Techno and black beat and pulse. Okay, these I don't end up using very much. But this first page has a couple different color programs, and then some standard setups like fire. And so fire will give you a simple candlelight, and ice is the same thing, but we flip the color to blue instead of to red. So these are a great place to start for basic programs. The first questions I get is, but I just want it to be tungsten, or I just want it to be daylight. How do I do that? So we're going to grab that. Let's start with just red. So we got a color profile that's very simply one color. And then if we move one tab further, into settings, we can control the settings for the program that we picked in this tab. Okay? So as we move further in, we're getting more and more specific through the tabs with our settings. So, there's a lot going on here, but up here, the first section, we're changing how it's reacting. Okay? So there are different options. Oh, what? Sorry. Give me 1 second. There we go. Okay, so there are a variety of different options of ways we can implement, whether it's one running color bar or it's spirals moving. There are different ways to play up here. So let's start with a very simple, we're going to start with a static program, and we want it to be one color, not 4 colors, but one. You can choose separately here. So this would, it's moving slowly right now. There we go. It separates the bars, but notice it separates the bars this way, not this way. All right? Because these are all synced together. What happens on one lamp happens on every one of them. So if we wanted them separate colors, we would have to program each lamp separately. All right? But we're going to do one color for now. And if you press C1, this is actually where we're going to change the color. And then at the bottom, there are options for tungsten, super tungsten, and then all the way up to daylight or up to 6,000 or 6,500. So let's set that to tungsten. Okay, so I press the 3200 at the bottom, and then it picks the color for you, and we're good. Now this color wheel has shown up in the middle of, it pops open in the middle of the settings. So when we look into color, you can actually keep scrolling around it and see the other settings that were there before. Okay, you can set up here, there's favorites. This is a new tablet, so I haven't had a chance to set favorites. But if you have colors you like working with, or you're on a long show and the DP says, I love that color of teal, you can save it and hold on to it. Okay, so to do that, when you're in the color wheel, you press the little favorite button and it'll hold on to it. All right, let's put that back to tungsten, as I'm poking around. All right. Fade in is if we're changing the program, how fast it's fading. So if we set this pretty slow, and then we change this to 3 color, it's going to take a minute to get there. And then we can change that back to our fade time to like, what, half a second? And then it's back, okay? Yay, fade time, all right. Strobe, we don't ever play with. Nobody likes strobing lights. Don't do that. All right, I mean, you can if you want. Brightness, we can change the color of the program, and then latch and flash. So flash is, more happens on an event side of the world. That's where you have the ability, when you go back to the program tab, which is this box at the top, to be able to tap something and it pops up only for a second. So you'll notice in the bottom of the strobe flash icon, there's this little thunderbolt symbol. That tells you that if you tap that, it will pop on the rainbow for a second. So it only plays, there's a little timer, it only plays for a second or two. All right, most of the time in film we want to work with latch. Because latch is basically, you choose a new program and it sticks with it. And just do the thing I told you to do and keep doing it until I tell you to stop. So, kind of like actors. All right. Great, so that's the majority of playing with how colors work. And then the last tab on the end is where we're going to set some global settings. So this is where we find our brightness control. And so in this case, we've set up so we've accessed lamp by lamp to change them one at a time. You doing it? Come on.
Adam,
yeah?
when you make a new set, the last set with the light belongs to governs its intensity. So now the 1, 2, 3, and 4 won't work anymore. But then 6 set at the bottom, you select that, the one way on the bottom. Yeah?
Yep, there we go. Okay. So you can change your brightness this way. This is a quick way to do it. Or, let's say you're in a situation where I know I'm lighting a club and I need a lot of green tubes in the background, but we're here from like all day. Let's say I know I got at least 10 hours doing this. You can either play the game with the battery power of trying to guess what brightness will get you 10 hours of runtime, or down here, there's a setting for minimum runtime. And you can choose your intensity based on how long you need the battery to go. Now when we bring it all the way down, it's going to get bright. That's your maximum output, but you're only going to get about an hour and a half out of them. Or you bring it all the way down to 20, and it dims them down, but you'll now get a whole day's runtime out of them. So that's a different way to set them. Or if you start, you need to work with this on camera, you can play with the intensity slider to choose your runtime as well. All right? So usually you want to use one or the other. So you either have this brightness bar set to 100 and then you're playing with this, or set this all the way to max and then play with this one. Because they will change at the same time. You'll notice that while we're at what in theory is the minimum runtime, which should be the lowest dim, we can still dim down from there. And then when we come back up to output, so they can both work at the same time. So in theory, you only want to play with one or play with the other. Yeah? Everybody still with me? Hands up if you got questions. All right? It always spooks me when nobody has a question. So, okay, all right. Uh-oh. Hey, Zach, how you doing? What's up?
Hey, I just wondered that issue that you had with sync flow, 1, 3, 4, sync up there.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4 weren't working because you had synced them all already. What was the sync and the flow above that wasn't working?
Okay, so there are old programs in here. So if we go back to this, to the program tab where we're choosing what lamps we're going to use, there's a sync and a flow already in here. So we're playing with some of those. So this sync that I made is the newest one, and there's a hidden old, it's this old sync was the one that didn't work. So you're still seeing representation of all of those separate programs here. So at the moment, I'm in this sync world to get those four to work. So clearly the other sliders aren't going to work at the moment. But if we went back into just controlling one of those separate lamps, they would work. Yeah? Okay. Any other questions? Megan?
It doesn't gray out the...
It doesn't gray out, no, it doesn't gray out the other options. No. It is a bit of a surprise. But it does helpfully list them in the order that they happen in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah. Okay. Anybody else? We'll move on to the next one? Okay, cool. So, all right, we went through programs, selecting a program, changing program settings, saving a new program, grouping lights into sync and flow. Okay, so now that we got the basics of get lights to basically produce color and change the intensity. Those are the simple things we need to do. Now we want to start looking at how to pair lights and how to work with them separately. So I had showed you earlier, jump back to the tablet for a second. You guys briefly saw me run through quickly setting up a sync profile and a flow profile. So flow, let's change that one to something where we can see it happening, is the one where it's the tubes are in order, as if it was moving through all of them separately. So to set that up, each time we do it, we're pretty much going to need to create a new profile. So usually towards the end of the day, as if I know we're not coming back to this location, I'll clear out old setups, because by the time we come to the shoot the next day, a lot of these groupings are not necessarily going to work once we put all 8 tubes back in the case, take them back out, and then try to sort out which ones are in which order. Just delete the programs and quickly make a new program. It's much faster. Delete the lamp groupings is what I should say, because we're calling programs these. Okay. So creating syncs and flows. So let's say we're going to create a new sync. So we're going to come up to the plus. We're going to say sync set, but we're only going to grab some of the lights. So the lights in this set, we're going to define as 1, come on, and 2. Great, okay. So we have those, and in the upper right corner, we're going to press that little check mark to create the set. And so now that set's blue. It just happened to pick the pink color. That doesn't have any relation to the other set. So now down here, this bottom sink is the one the blue one at the top, and then we're going to create another set. You can use that plus icon that was up at the top, and another sink set, and this time we're going to grab the bottom two. Okay, so those two are in there. I want to call this sink 2 to keep these straight. All right, we get the check mark at the top, and then we say yes to try a test pattern, and of course it picks the same pattern but with a slightly different color center color. So now we have 2 pages of. I'm just going to quickly delete. Remove a tile. Okay. Oh man, you deleted the one I wanted. 1 second. Yep, it deleted the one I wanted. Give me 1 moment. We're going to add a new sync set, and then we're going to grab these top 2 again. 1, 2. Okay, we hit the check mark up on the top. That grabs those for the group. We're going to hit yes. Okay, so now these are listed a little bit backwards, so let's rearrange them to be. Okay. So this pencil icon up at the top, I'm using that, and then I hit arrange tiles, and you can drag and drop them kind of like anybody's used to with an app, or with like an iPhone, moving these tiles around on your desktop. Okay, so we have them in order. So we're going to set the first set to be blue. Okay, second set is green. So now we can control these separately throughout the room, and you can work with different groups. Setting up a flow setup is going to be very similar. Give me 1 second. Okay, setting up a flow setup is going to be very similar. Oh my god! But this time we're going to come back to the new program setup. When it sets a flow set, it's going to ask you, because now it needs to know the order of the lights. So now which lights you're working with in which order matters a lot more carefully. So there's 2 ways to do this. You either choose the lights from the Astera app, and then it will, you're going to choose them as press buttons on here, and it will assign an automatic order to them. Or we're going to start on the top, manually do this, where we tell it the number of positions we need. So let's say there are 4 lights. So we're going to need 4 separate group sections of the flow. And we'll hit the arrow next to this. I'm going to call this flow to save it. All right. We're going to hit the arrow next to this one to start working in that world. Now you'll see it says lights in position 1 of 4. And then as we move through this side arrow, we're able to see 2 of 4, 3 of 4, 4 of 4. Okay? So first thing, we're going to come back to 1. And we're going to call these one by one. Man, Sam, I should have to do this. Okay. So that cues number 1. And then I'm going to hit that right arrow on the top. And then we're going to cue number 2. I'm just giving it a quick press. It doesn't have to hold for long. All right, it sees that one, so we're going to go to 3. And now we're in 4. Okay, now where that arrow was that I kept pressing, there's a plus sign that came up. And so if you want to add more positions, you can keep doing that. But if you're done with the 4, don't press the plus, otherwise it's going to create a 5th position. So instead, all the way up at the top corner, if we keep remembering where this check mark is, that's what we need to do to commit the program. Okay? So we're going to say yes, we're going to try test pattern, and great. Now it's moving through all 4 of them separately. Everybody still with me?
Yeah.
This is probably the most complicated part of the night is figuring out how flows work. So we're going to change this to back to a simple setup. What are you doing? Flow 2. We're going to change those to a simple setup. Okay, something that's not too distracting. Okay, so there is an older. Should I go through the older menu groups? Okay. There is another menu for groups. There's another way to group lights, and so for some people they think of this as easier. Some people prefer to do the sync and the flow groups separately. One second. Computer keeps trying to do stuff. All right. So. If we come back to the group, or the light control tab, okay, so this is where we're choosing our lights. Instead, we're going to choose groups at the top. So now it's groups and something. So we can have other programs running at the same time. But groups makes this little thing appear. And this little tab, that little hotkey, is where we're going to be able to set up different groups of lights. So this is another way of thinking about the same process. This is a slightly older version that's still in the software, but it works pretty well. So we can choose how many groups we want running at a time. So if we want to have, let's say, in this case, 2 groups, and then we can set the groups up separately. So if you press the first setup group, and then we give 1 a tap, and we give 2 a tap, great, and we're done. And then we set up the group for the second one, 1 a tap, 2 a tap, great, and then we hit done, okay? Now, what you change on these only affects which group you're in, right? So if we want to change both at once, we'll leave them both on, we put them on red, and it changes everything. If we go to groups and we turn off group 2, so now we're only committing to work on group 1, and we change that to green. Damn it. Let's try that in reverse. I think I know what I did wrong. No? Greg, what did I do?
I don't know.
Okay.
I think the problem is each light can only belong to up to 4 sets, and I think you've already reached that maximum. And second, a group is really a set is actually a version of the group. So I think that's what the problem is.
Okay, so Greg's feedback for me was that lights in general can only be part of 4 different programs, 4 grouping programs at a time. And so over the course of this demo, I've now set up 4 separate groups, or 4 separate groupings of lights, and then I'm trying to add this on top, and it's too many separate controls for the lamp. Yeah. Okay. So another good reason at the end of the day to clear some of these out if you're not using them, because the next day now you got to start reorganizing stuff while everybody's yelling at you on set. So, you got a hand up? No? Okay, you're just lounging. Okay, cool. Cool. Okay. So groups is if this style setup makes a little bit more sense to you, definitely something you can play with once we get into demo time. You guys are gonna feel free to have fun playing with that. Okay. Now, one of the fun things I want to talk about, we do have the. Switch bullets for a second. We do have the ability to purchase hardware tonight. I'm working with Greg to offer you guys a deal on if you're interested, if you like what you're working with and you're interested in purchasing a set, we can definitely do that. As we get into the demo time, there's going to be pricing that'll show up here. Whether you want to get the whole set with a case of 8 tubes, the tablet and the DMX box, or you want to just get a couple tubes and an infrared remote, there are different ways to put kits together. So, if you're interested in purchasing hardware and you like what you're playing with, then you're going to go back up to the front and visit Laura, who's the one who we checked in with. Has anybody here not had a chance to check in yet? Put your hand up? Yeah? Okay. All right, cool. If you guys make sure you just stop by with Laura, because that's how we're also going to be able to follow up with you guys after the event. So she has a little form to fill out, and then we'll get back to you guys over the weekend with figuring out how big of a discount we can offer for a group buy. Wonderful. Okay. So, so now that we've finished talking about the lecture, we're going to get into demo time. So we have, was it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I guess 6 setups to work with, and I guess we got about 30 people. So it's probably going to be about 5 people per group. Feel free to create your own groups. The one thing I need help with is figuring out how to switch the room over from lecture space to event space, or to demo time. So the big thing I need to do when we say go is we're going to collapse all of the chairs up onto this wall, and then we're going to bring some of the tables out so that we have room to work. Now, we got a couple people joining us to give us a hand with demoing the hardware. So Greg, Greg's gonna be helping us walk around. The one thing, we didn't talk about pairing. That's the one topic I didn't get into. Okay, Greg's gonna give us a hand demoing how to pair lights between the box and the lamps with a cool thing called blue mode. We're gonna do that one group at a time, because otherwise if 3 groups are trying to do it at once, it becomes a mess. So we're gonna do that one group at a time. And then Sam was over here, and where's Finn? Is Finn still here? Oh, I think Finn's taking a break for a moment. But Finn will also be walking around giving you guys a hand. So the things I want you guys to play with are going to be trying out creating a new program, trying out creating a flow set or a sync set, and trying changing colors and being able to set the group of colors that you want to play with, right? And then while that is happening, everybody's going to take turns at each table. Greg will come around with us and help you guys go over the pairing process, which is, it only takes a couple steps, but it's something we often have to do each time you get a new set of lights together. We try to ship them out of the warehouse all paired together. Sometimes when you're out on set, they'll lose connection and you got to repair them together. Okay? Everybody good so far? Yeah? Wonderful. All right. So when I say go, we're going to collapse the chairs, and we're going to have a couple minutes of mingling time while Sam, Greg, and I get the table set up, and then we're all going to come back to messing with the lights. Cool? All right, and go.